4 years ago, I joined the Amiga developer team for the AmigaOS 3. And yeah, one of the first days, I was looking at the source code, and one of the first things I saw was comments from 38 years ago from people like RJ and Dale Locke and Carl Sassenrath. And I must say, I was like really taken back by that. It was like, wow, the heroes of my youth. So yeah, it was a surreal experience to actually have something from so long ago just right in front of me. I felt like I was more or less being colleagues with these guys. And yeah, of course, they are not part of the team anymore. But we have another team, and I really like that team. We are having a lot of fun there, and we joke, and we even have like a little chat where we can talk every night and in the weekends. And we have a chat bot there. We call it Joe Pillow, just like the original Joe Pillow on the airplane, if you know that story. And yeah, so we just have a lot of fun. And we work hard, of course, in between. And yeah, so 2.5 years ago, more or less, we released AmigaOS 3.2. And yeah, it's been an amazing success. We have it installed over thousands of Amigas already, all over the world. And people are making programs for it. And you have these, I don't know if you call them distributions, but people that modding it and putting things on top. And people are making programs for it, especially for 3.2. So it's been really, really great. Today, though, I'm going to talk about 3 things. I'm going to talk about nostalgia, and then I'm going to talk about our vision for AmigaOS 3. And finally, I'm going to talk about something I call vitamin pills for the ecosystem. So, nostalgia. I have a question. If you can remember the first time each of you got an Amiga, I'm pretty sure we can all remember that. For me, I can remember it was a sunny day and the delivery people, they were late, so I was calling up and when are you coming here? And yeah, so I can remember it very clearly. And I think that nostalgia is the key reason that each of us are still using the Amiga. It's something from our youth that we still like. It's however important to recognize that the nostalgia is not the same for all of us. For some people who just kept on playing games, it may be the blue and orange. And for some other people, like myself, it's the grayscale years. And again, for others, it's the more colorful modding things, 3.9 and 4.0 and onwards. So yeah, it's important to recognize that we each have different points of nostalgia, and it's not really something that we can change by talking and putting up presentations or anything, because it's dependent on when we more or less left the Amiga scene back then. So my computer broke down and I was at university, so I left it in the grayscale years. And yeah, that's more or less how things turned out. I have another question though. Can you remember that you dreamed about new stuff? You looked in the magazines all night, talking to your friends, family, and maybe you went to trade shows like this one. And yeah, these days, of course, this can become true. We just had the PyStorm presentation up here, so that's really cool. We have the Apollo, we have new games, we have a lot of new stuff that comes out, and it's bringing new life to us. I would say, though, that it's important for us to remember that it has to remain nostalgic. Of course, it depends on what your point of nostalgia, as I just said earlier, what that is. But you need to be true to your own nostalgia all the time. Otherwise, you may lose interest over time. Yeah, so with that said, I'm going to talk a little about AmigaOS 3 and our vision for it. One of the key things we want to do is actually to respect that past. And of course, we cannot respect everyone's nostalgia, but we have a baseline that is the 3.1. So we cannot do anything really for the people who really want to be the 1.x days, but we can be the exciting new things for the ones in the grayscale years, and people are able to put something on top and make the more colorful days of the 3.9. So you can do with it what you want, and we want to allow people to take that ride with us again, just in a little bit more fixed and stable form. We also want to innovate, and we want to be smarter with a lot of things that we do. So one of the things, of course, we did was we had the installer using ADF files. So you can actually even mount an ADF file, and you can use that during the install process. So we got rid of having, well, I think it's 20-something floppy disks, and that was, of course, impossible. So we still want to keep the idea of having a floppy disk, because again, it's part of the nostalgia thing, but it's also on disk, so you can make it faster. Another thing we did was actually we took and made the help button on the Amiga keyboard actually useful. It's been there all the years, but now we had I would say online help, but that's not online. But if you press help, you bring up a documentation, and Ignacio was very productive, and he has written documentation for more or less all of the operating system. So very nice. Another thing we did was to make it faster, and we do that all over. And so here are some of the highlights. Text formatting output of that, we made that 5 times faster than it used to be, just by changing the code. And also we did the buffered I/O 2 times faster. And the last item I have highlighted here is local text lookup. So say you have German catalogs. It used to take, well, depending on how large your catalog was, it could take several microseconds to look up, and over time that would be a lot. And now it's an instant text lookup. So even if you have a huge catalog with a lot of translated words, it will be just as fast as if there was only one. And then we fixed a lot of bugs, and we will continue to fix a lot of bugs. I don't have the exact number, but it's well over 1,000. And some of these bugs you may never have heard of, but we found them, and then we, of course, just fixed them. So a lot of work has gone into that. And then we want to follow Commodore's plans. In '93, I think, they had a developer conference, and in that, they wrote up a lot of things they wanted to do with the UI. So we have taken a lot of these ideas and wanted to do those. And one of the things they wanted to do was make a lot of new boopsy gadgets. We have the reaction toolkit, which is actually an implementation of all of those ideas. So it's directly following from what Commodore wanted back then. And you can more or less say that reaction is a reaction to Commodore having these plans. So they are now officially a part of the OVS. Again, of course, they were in 3.9 and 4.0 as well. But they are once more, and we have done a lot of fixing and cleaning them up. The other thing Commodore wanted to have was the resizing windows from all size. We did that. They wanted to change the way you select text. We have done that in some places. Already in 3.1.4, but more in 3.2, you were allowed to actually move windows off screen, partly off screen, so you could move around and have better work for that. They had the idea of having several mouse pointers. We have introduced that. And there are plenty more ideas that they have written down there. And going forward, of course, we will look into see if we can follow more of those ideas. So our vision is to respect the past. We want to innovate and be smarter. We want to be faster, fewer bugs, and also follow Commodore's plans. But of course, with 3.2, we don't stop there. We put out an update, 3.2, after 1 year. And a year after that, more or less, we had 3.2.2, the second update. And we had to do a little hotfix for that. It took us another couple of months. And if and when needed, we will, of course, make a third update if there are bigger bugs that comes up. But for the past 5 months or so, we have actually been starting on the next bigger project for us. And yeah, well, Amiga 3.3 is actually something that we have now started to work on. And yeah, there's a long way to go. We just started, and normally these things takes years. And yeah, at the very least, it will take us 2 years. I think that's the optimistic with you. Hopefully it will not take us more than 4. Maybe somewhere in between, I don't know. Maybe it's even longer. We will see. The thing is that we do this for fun. We do it with love, and we do it without rushing. So if we feel that there's a feature that needs to be in there, we will put it in there. And over time, we will suddenly realize that we need another feature, and so we will decide, okay, we'll take another couple of months, and when we'll put that one in. So when we say it's ready when it's ready, we actually mean it. It's not something that we can really predict ahead of time. So the timeline is more like how much time will we allow ourselves, and not an estimation of when we are done. We do want to be transparent, and I know some of you was surprised about 3.2, but we do want to tell you about it. However, we don't want to promise what we can't hold, and one of the things we can't hold is that we cannot say, okay, we will have the release ready in 2 weeks from now or a couple of months from now, because we cannot promise it. We will put something in, we will find a bug we need to fix, and so on and so on. So. Yeah, and this goes for features as well. If we promise that, I don't know, that we make a DVD player or something in it, we cannot promise that, because most likely that's something we will never do. So, yeah, we will be a bit silent about features until we have almost made them, and we can be quite sure that they will go in eventually. And yeah, so we have actually already made 3 features. I'm going to show you them in a moment. Remember that these are very early stages, but yeah, let's go. So we want to rework preferences, and we have started out with the local preference, and the idea here is to have like a topic selection in the left and some main parts in the right. And one of the reasons is, well, for people with RTG, it doesn't matter, but we still need to be compatible with 640 by 200. So we cannot have too much in these preference editors at the same time, and it was getting really crammed in the old way it was doing. So we have the idea of making some kind of selection so we can divide it by theme and topic. And yeah, it may be that we never get to do all the preferences before we release. It may, I mean, it can take a couple of months each, and it will take a long time. So we have this one that we are, I don't know, 60%, 70% done with. Another thing we have worked on is a new shell, or actually a new console to host the shell. And a couple of good things about that is that it will have the scroll bar. I know there are consoles out there that already does this, but we have made a new one here. And it also has optional tabs, so you can have more than one shell in the same window. And of course, the Iconify actually works, so you can switch screen modes or anything in between and don't have to close it down. Oh, and the good thing about this is actually a gadget. So if you're a programmer and you want to have a shell inside your own program, you can actually take this gadget and put it inside. The third thing is that we decided to replace HD Toolbox. It's an old, trusted friend, but we want to move on. And yeah, so I think it's easy to say that it will be a leap forward in user experience. One of the things we have is that it will actually automatically list all your drives, so you don't need to write in which device driver you have at the moment. And we have done away with having to write which cylinders you are working on. You just say how much space do you want, megabytes, gigabytes, which file system do you want, boot priority, and that's about it. And then you just press review and apply, and you get a little summary, and then you have applied your changes. Fourth thing is actually 3 things. We have reworked the menus. So we have introduced sticky menus, so you can click on the mouse button, on the menu mouse button, and then the menu will stay up. Of course, this is optional, but it will stay up, so you can release the button again. It will stay until you click on the item you want to choose. Of course, this means that multiple selection of menu items doesn't work in this case, but that is your choice. The other thing is we want to have context menus. So depending on what you click on, you can get a little menu up like that. You know it from other operating systems, of course. One of the obvious places would be if you right-click on an icon in Workbench. We have no plans to do that. We have no plans to rework Workbench as it stands. Actually, we don't have any plans to use this context menu stuff, but it's there for programmers in the future. And we will probably use it a few places, but I don't think we have any big plans for it. And the final thing is floating menus. So I think a lot of you know floating menus from Magic Menu. And while that's a good idea, it's also impossible to do this from outside the OS. There will always be a chance that your system will lock up. So we decided, okay, people like it, let's make it. So again, as an option, you can now turn this on, and then you will get this pop-up of a floating menu. And it's, of course, the normal menu system where you have the topics at the top, and then the sub-menus going on. And if you click at the top where the normal menu is, you will still get it in the normal layout. Yeah, so we are really excited about starting this. And meanwhile, of course, 3.2 is still a great version, and we will actively support it. We will come out with an update for it if and when needed. In fact, we have a new NDK version updates that we're still already working on, probably coming in the not too distant future. So 3.2 is definitely still very much alive and kicking. So the ecosystem vitamins that I wanted to talk about, those are not under the umbrella of Hyperion. It's sort of the same developer group and beta testers. And yeah, so we wanted to make sure that the ecosystem around the Amiga got a lot of things that could help it to grow. So we don't want it to just depend on individual people wanting to do each of their own things. We wanted to make some tools that allowed people to develop. So I made, together with Ralph down here, CodeCraft, which is an integrated development environment. And yeah, it's a thing that that combines everything the developer needs in a single application. Some of you may know it from Visual Studio Code, Eclipse, and other things like that. Xcode, for example, for Mac. And it looks like this. So you can actually already see here that it has a lot of things going on besides being just an editor. The editor here is actually a text edit from 3.2, which is the text editor I was involved in creating in 3.2. But it has some extensions outside, and that's what CodeCraft is. So it's a modern way of working, as I said. There is the area here where you are editing and writing down with syntax highlighting. There's a menu item with a shortcut, of course, where you can start the build. And when it builds, you can down here in the tab down there, you will see the build errors you are having. And if you double click on any of these, you will jump automatically to the correct file and the correct line number. You can also debug. There's a debugger built into this. And the red dot you can see at the end of the long arrow there, that's a breakpoint. So when your program is running and it comes to this point in your program, it will just stop, and the blue arrow will point at the line 14. Now it's pointing on the next line because we have just stepped one line, so that's also a possibility. And yeah, so you can also inspect the values. And if you're a programmer, you could see that the value of glow has just changed to 1, and it's highlighted down there in white, so it's easy to spot. And you can go through your program and you can see how everything's behaving, if it does what you expect it to do, and it's helping you out. And again, the great thing about this, in my mind at least, is that it's Amiga native, so even developers have this nostalgia thing that they want to, at least in some place, enforce. As I said, if you go too far away from your nostalgia, you may lose it. So a lot of these cross-compilation things, that's nice and fast, but maybe even once in a while you may want to actually sit and use your Amiga yourself as a developer, not just for testing your program. It works with any programming language and any compiler and any build system. So right now we're just using it with SAS-C, but you could use it in theory with any compiler for any language. In order to do the debugging part, it has to produce some information for the debugger in order to work, but most compilers can at least do the thing where you can step through the program. Inspection of variables for now is only SAS-C. I know that GCC actually provides these info, so I hope we can make that work in the future. I know VBCC is actually intending for their compiler to output in the same information as SAS-C, because we spent 4 months reverse engineering what SAS-C did, and yeah, so we have documented that, and now VBCC can output the same format. I think they have an idea about it, but I'll let them announce that one day. So we also produced, as a little side project, a box for this program in the original Amiga 1000 look, and we had a disc with a disc label. We have a couple of them at the AmigaOS booth down there, so you can see it in real life if you want to see it. And yeah, so the checkmark and the Amiga logo was courtesy of Amiga Corporation that owns these trademarks, so we got an agreement with that. And yeah, so we have an official release available of it now. It's open source. Well, text edit, the editor, of course, you need to have 3.2, but the CodeCraft, the debugger, and all things around it, that's open source. And if you go to boemann.dk/codecraft, then you can find the link. The source is on GitLab, not GitHub, but GitLab. Yeah, so check it. or you could join us in developing. That would be even better. So the other thing I'm working on, and have been working on for a couple of years now, is a new volume. Well, I wouldn't call it that, but a new manual, ROM kernel reference manual, changes and edition, we call it. And for you of those that are programmers, you can maybe remember the original documentation that came out. I think it was 4 or 5 volumes, and it covers all the way up to AmigaOS 2.0. And yeah, so the new one is planning to cover the changes and the additions since AmigaOS 2.1. It will eventually cover, for example, the local library and the catalog thing, but also all of the new stuff from 3.2. We've already written about 70 pages, and yeah, it's an ongoing project, and it probably will never stop because, yeah, it goes on. It's free as long as for personal use, so you're not allowed to print it and sell hard copies of it, but you can just download it and see it, and you can actually download it right now if you go to the retrocommodore.eu site, which has a lot of scans of old books. And we will try to make updates 1 or 2 times per year, but it varies. So yeah, it happens. The final vitamin pill is that we want to make, and this is mostly the OS developers, but we want to make a developer conference next year, so about 5 months from now. It's supposed to be online and supposed to be free. I don't know what tool we will make use of, but we'll communicate that in advance. And some of the topics, I mean, this is very much a tentative agenda, but we might want to talk about how to make a device or a library. So if you want to have insight of which pitfalls, and there are pitfalls in making a library, we will go through these, and especially about how to make a device. That could also be interesting for a lot of you guys making hardware, to make a device for it. So we will talk about working with the boopsie classes, or reaction, whatever you want to call it. We will talk a little about what's going to change in AmigaOS 3.3. Just not only the version numbers, also they will have to change. We are running against a limit, because at some point we will be using the same numbers as AmigaOS 4.0, and that's not good. So we will need to make some changes there. I'm going to talk about a library that's called ContainerKit. It's an open source library actually, but it will play an important part in AmigaOS 3.3. We'll be using it in a lot of places. And then another thing that is in early development is something I call TestKit. It's automated unit testing for the code. And I'm actually using it for ContainerKit already to test that these things work correctly. And if any of you, as a programmer out there, has any suggestions for topics, or maybe if you want to contribute, just get in touch. We can put up a slot for you, so you can have something to tell about. So just to go through what I've been talking about today is, started talking about how nostalgia is important to keep us all engaged, but also how improvements and new things can give new life and make us all feel young again. And then about AmigaOS 3.3 being in progress, still a long way to go, but we are starting. Codecraft, the new manual, and the developer conference. And then I would like to invite you to our stand down in the corner, just next to Apollo. And we will be taking questions down there. I don't think I will be taking any questions up here because I don't want to commit to anything. As I said, we don't want to commit to anything. But if we're talking down there in a little bit of privacy, then maybe you can get a little bit more answers out of us. also, we would like to hear from you, because if you have ideas for 3.3, and we will very much appreciate to hear something from you. Thank you.